First things first, I'm Jenna Wolf. Nick Wright, Kevin Wilds. We got Chris Broussard with us this morning. A lot to get to on a Tuesday. Korean baseball is finally back. We're going to break down their entire schedule. No, we're not going to do that. But Odell is fired up. Mike Tyson wants to mount a comeback. And if he played today, apparently Michael Jordan would average 305 points per game. That's where we're going to start on this Tuesday morning. Our Prime Performance, sponsored by Whole Foods Market. People are saying it. I'm just reporting it. With the Michael Jordan doc upon us, the topic of just how many points MJ could drop if he did play today. That seems to be front and center. Some are saying as many as 40 to 50 a game. Kevin Durant agrees. Kevin Durant saying Jordan would be, quote, the best player in the league today. Broussard, you had a hand in igniting this debate, this discussion. We're going to start with you. Would Jordan have averaged 40-plus points per game if he played in today's NBA?
I am convinced that Michael Jordan would average 40 points a game. 50 is too much. Not quite 50, but 40 points a game. Let me count ways, Nick Wright. Let me count the ways. Number one, it is easier than ever to get to the rim in today's NBA. And obviously, Jordan lived at the rim. The floor is spread, which makes it easier. And then defenses run you off the three-point line. They'd rather you take a two than a three. So Michael Jordan would get to the rim easily. And then when he gets there, there's no resistance. There'd be 2-3 players at the rim nowadays. When Jordan finished, there were routinely 6 and 7 guys in the paint. And they could hammer you back then. Nowadays, they can't even touch you. And if they do, it's a foul or a flagrant foul. Oh, and Jordan also did that, going to the rim, scoring at the rim, during the best era of big men we've ever seen. There was Patrick Ewing, Hakeem Olajuwon, Shaquille O'Neal, David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, Dikembe Mutombo, Mark Eaton. And you think he couldn't finish over JaVale McGee? Secondly, the mid-range. He's arguably the greatest mid-range shooter in NBA history. And I know Mike D'Antoni and the Houston Rockets hate the mid-range and all the copycats the same. But the guys that still do the mid-range shot dominate. How about Kawhi Leonard? How about Kevin Durant? Champions and dominant scorers. Thirdly, three-point shooting. Jordan was adequate back then. If he played today where the three-pointer is encouraged, and he would practice it more, and he would be an above-average three-point shooter. Not saying he'd be Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, but definitely an above-average three-point shooter, which would give him even more points. Finally, the pace of play is so much faster today. Jordan's last 2 years of averaging 30 points, 96 and 97. Teams averaging 96, 99 points a game, but Jordan averaged 30. 97, 96 points a game, but Jordan averaged 30. Today, they average 111 points a game. You don't think Jordan would get 40? I may be underestimating the man.
Okay. I love everything you just said there. It was perfect, and you ended on a perfect note. Pace of play. Because I'm just going to lay out some facts. You had a lot of supposition there, a lot of he would have gotten better at three-point shooting. I just know it in my heart of hearts. I'm going to give some facts, right? In the 90s, when Jordan won the titles, he never averaged more than, he averaged for the title runs around 31 a game, topped out at about 32 and a half. Now, in the 80s, he had a 35-point-per-game season and famously a 37-point-per-game season. Here is a fact. In the last 35 years, including this year and last year, the fastest pace of play was 1987, the year Michael Jordan averaged the 37. The 80s, not right now, were the highest scoring decade of the last 40 years and the fastest decade as far as pace of play of the last 40 years. Look it up. It's true. I know people don't like to acknowledge the facts, but those are the facts. We can deal with the three-point shooting in a moment, but I am going to force you as a vessel for all the people, my friends on television, Jalen Rose, who says he'd get 47 and a half, David Blatt, who says he'd score 50, my pal Mike Greenberg, who said he scored 45, to take that to its furthest logical conclusion, which is, how do I explain this best to the audience? Think about money when we talk about inflation over years. This much dollars in 1985 is worth this much now, and then you do vice versa. You then flip it around the other way. If you are saying Michael Jordan would average 42, 43 points per game, when in the 90s, when he was winning, he never averaged more than 32, what you are saying is Kevin Durant, who you used, would struggle to break 20 a game. That Kawhi Leonard would struggle to break 18 a game. Broussard, it can't only work in one direction. It can't only be, okay, if it's so much easier to score, then why aren't those guys scoring like that? Unless you believe Jordan's offensive game is just exponentially greater than Durant's. What you have to be saying is that the guys of Jordan's era, Dominique, would be at 38, 39 a game right now, and nobody's close to it. Jordan would be at 43, 44 a game, or does this math only work for your guy? Are we only doing this era inflation for your guy? If it's so much easier, let's take Durant, leave LeBron out of it. Durant, I think one of the top 5 offensive players ever. So his points per game dropped drastically in Jordan's era, right?
No,
correct?
No.
He's down around 22.
Durant and
no,
Kawhi would be phenomenal scorers even during that time. They're just not as skilled. Now Durant is very skilled, but he doesn't go to the rim like
Durant.
MJ.
Talk to me about Durant.
He doesn't go to the rim like MJ. I don't know if you're throwing out biochemistry or what this strange stuff you're doing. Just because Jordan would score more in today's game, I'm not saying Kawhi Leonard wouldn't score back in the 80s and the 90s.
No, that's, Broussard, that's how it works. You can't.
No.
Broussard, that is the logic of the argument. And the reason you're saying no is because that's where the argument falls apart. Unless you are arguing that Michael Jordan, I am not arguing
Tell me
Jordan
why
couldn't
Jordan
hack it in today's
Tell
era.
me why he couldn't score that many points in today's game.
Because in the
James Harden scores 37. He can't get to the James Harden gets to the rim at will.
30. No,
he's
James Harden scores 36.
Michael Jordan. Okay, 36.
James Harden scores 36, did it once, and he did it on 13 three-pointers per game. Here's the full list of guys to average 35-plus in a season. Kobe once, Rick Barry once, Harden once, Jordan twice, 35 and 37, Elgin once, and, of course, Wilt 5 times. So take Wilt out of the equation. You can only take 35 shots per 100 possessions in an NBA game. Nobody's ever taken more. In fact, the only guys to take even 34 are Kobe, AI, Russ, and Jordan. So you've got to find where the points are coming from, because we've seen Jordan play at the pace of this era, in a higher scoring era, in what I'm told was a better era of the 80s. And he capped out at 37. So Wilds, find it for me. Find me the extra 8 points that get him to 45 points per game.
The arc.
Yeah, can I get you 3 points, Nick? I can get you 3 points. Like, we've got the Kirk Goldsberry graphic that we've seen, and how the shot selection and space on the floor has changed from Jordan's era to Harden's era. So basically, it's the death of the mid-range. Everybody knows this. But then if you look around those long twos that D'Antoni hates, don't you think that Jordan could take some of those and force them to be threes, Nick? When we talked about his top 2 scoring seasons, Jordan versus LeBron, the three-pointers made the actual numbers here. Jordan made 12 that whole season. Harden made 378. So don't you think Jordan could take those 12 threes and maybe make, I don't know, 75? I didn't do the math perfectly. And doesn't that get you to 40?
It's a great question. And which is why it's so perfect that we know the answer. Because during Jordan's era, they shortened the arc for 3 years. His first year back from baseball, the partial year, and then the next 2 years. And amazingly, that shortening of the arc made a huge difference. He was an awesome three-point shooter those seasons because it wasn't a 3. And then his final year in Chicago, they made it a 3 again. And through all his hard work and all his determination, greatest competitor, hardest working guy ever, he shot 23% from three. So no, I don't think magically Michael Jordan would have just been a great three-point shooter. Would Larry Bird have been a great three-point shooter in this era? Yes. You know why? Because he was a great three-point shooter in his era.